Okay, well, I want to give you a little bit of a close-up here, and I'm really trying to give you a very practical knowledge of how to engrave something and some of the things that have to be done. And here we have the same part I'm working on. I'm just finishing it up now. And what I'm doing is looking at my work from different angles. Now, one thing you can do is you can take your work when you think you have something done and it looks pretty good, you like the animal or you like the scroll okay, and one thing that's really useful is looking at it in a mirror. Why would you look at it in a mirror? Because you're kind of fooling your brain that it's something different and you're looking at it with a little bit of a different perspective, okay? Another thing you can do is just put it up on your workbench and just leave it there for a few days and just keep looking at it. What would I do different? Now, on this butt plate, I changed my mind on a scroll, so I drew some scroll on here and started to cut it, and then I thought, you know, it doesn't go with the top lever, dude, so I just took out the engraving and I redid it. It wasn't, probably took me an extra couple hours to do that, but I want everything to match for the customer. So this scroll is really quite fine, and I'm just going over it now and making sure I shade it where I need it. And right here I can see where I have a scribe line. Like when I make my lines, for example, to engrave a straight line, I'll use a scribe line. Here's a Chinese, what isn't Chinese today, right? But here's a Chinese compass, and I just get that at the right angle, and I will, before I put it in the wood, in the glue, because the glue will block my line as it's an impediment, so I'll take it and mark out my line this way so to make sure that they're all quite evil. Did I say evil? I mean quite even. We don't want any evil lines. Evil lines are lines that are not even. But anyway, I have a really nice looking border here. It's a bunch of flower leaves around the screw hole. I have borders, scroll around some of these other borders. One thing that's important to know about design is that borders can be made into the scroll. You never have a scroll come in and meet a border. You have the scroll become part of the border. So you have to have it loop around and become part of the border. You grow the scroll. This is supposed to be foliage that's growing and it's flowing, and we just try to make it look more beautiful than it really is. So right now I'm just looking for mistakes. So I'm going back over, I'm taking a hand burn, and I'm just going over it where I want to make shading. Now I've polished this way down to 220, so I probably need to go over this now with 320, because, and actually in some cases that'll make the scroll shading look even finer because I went over it with the polishing paper. Polishing paper is simply automotive paper that you get from anywhere. Usually an auto parts store. You can get it from Brownhouse. And again, I'm looking for mistakes, and any aberration or anything that I can see to make a slight improvement. Now, this is 2.5 power I've got. If somebody wants to go through here with a 20 power microscope to criticize this work, go right ahead, because this is something that's to be admired when you're on watch, waiting for that big buck that maybe never shows up, and well, you got the engraving to look at in case you forget what the deer looks like. Maybe you're going to put a likeness of a deer on there. I don't know, but it's fun. It's fun to have a. I think it makes one of those things that makes life worthwhile. Really, is to have a functional work of art? Why shouldn't you be able to have a functional work of art that you can enjoy, that you can get your money out of later? That's what I believe customers are doing. Now, some customers have a little negotiation going on with their wives about, well, honey, okay, can I get this gun or gun engraving? And okay, yeah, sure, okay, then you get wall-to-wall carpeting. I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Wall-to-wall carpeting is a really bad investment. I don't care what she says she needs. You shouldn't have to hide your gun engraving from your wife because you're worried about her spending money on a bathroom or wall-to-wall carpeting. That's absolutely ridiculous. So don't tell me that, because it doesn't make any sense. If you put money in the bank, that's what guns are. Guns are the same thing as buying gold mining shares or gold stock or IBM or Google stock, something of that nature. There's no difference between gun engraving and a share of Google or IBM or whatever else you think you want to buy. In fact, in a pinch, gun engraving and the firearm itself can actually increase your net worth. And also, these are a couple spaces I don't like that I'm filling in. Another good thing about gun engraving is that it's an investment, and it can protect the family, it can be a legacy, it can be an heirloom, it definitely can be collateral for a loan. I know that. Gun engraving is a special art form, and a few people have it, but it is highly marketable. It's every bit as marketable as a silver bullion coin or antique coin or numismatic coin. A lot more marketable than that new Volvo that you just bought. And as soon as you drive it out of the parking lot, it's worth about what? 10% or more or less. Now, here we have a little mistake that I was talking about. I have a scribe line. Now, this is a burn. It's a shiny piece of steel. It's my most used tools. Excuse me, I said burner. I meant burnisher. Here we have a burnisher. This is a very valuable tool. As you can see, it's polished. Hope you can see it. And you hold it in your hand like this, upside down sort of. Here's the curved end. And you can get, now if you're a man with good sized hands, or even small hands like mine, my hands are reasonably small. But here you can see me pressing down with probably 5 or 10 pounds worth of force, and I can get that little scribe line, make it disappear. I can make little scratches disappear so that it looks nice and neat. And it looks like I've never made any little mistakes at all, which is an absolute lie. I make mistakes all the time. I'm pretty good at covering up my mistakes, but God knows I'm only a man. I'm not a machine. I'm not a microscope. I'm only a man that knows how to use these tools. How did I learn how to use these tools? Robert Mackey, School of Firearms Engraving, which was mostly videotapes that he corrected. How did I manage to do that? Because I'm motivated. I didn't want to work in an office anymore. Some guys want to work in an office. They want to get a job in an office. I can't do it. I can't work in an office. I just can't. I don't like it. I like to work here by myself. Now, good part about working by yourself, you play whatever music that you want to play. You can learn things. It's surprisingly what you can learn from books on tape, for example. You can listen to all the old masters. You can learn about art. There's all kinds of things you can learn. You can get a computer program if you can stand the animated robotic type voice. Sometimes that'll kind of drive you crazy, but you can get a computer program that'll read you any book you want. It doesn't have to be only books on tape. You can memorize things when you're engraving. You can write poetry engraving. You can there's so many things that you can learn, and because it's always good to increase your skill level. That's what it's all about. It's not having a degree in economics. You don't need a degree in economics to buy stock and make money. You can just use your own common sense. To get licensed to make money, for example, be a physician or a teacher, okay, you gotta do what the man tells you to do, right? You gotta get licensed. All right, that's fine if that's what you think you want to do. If you want to be a physician, or if you want to be a academic, you know, I'm sure you've seen the Wizard of Oz. Remember the characters on the Wizard of Oz that were off to see the wizard with Dorothy? And some of them one of them wanted intelligence. He figured he didn't have any intelligence, so they gave him a degree which certified that he was intelligent. I've got a degree. I don't know, you know, just the only thing the degree is, it's just a little 4-year degree from a state college. That's all it is. It's not a license to do anything. It's benefited me rarely, but one good thing about it is I'm not easily intimidated by academics. A lot of academics are incredibly brilliant, and others are just plain stupid, just like the general population. So you create your own environment. You can create yourself a beautiful life. You can surround it by your engraving and your artwork. You can listen to the great classics. You could memorize Shakespearean plays. You could open up a whole new world for yourself. Just don't get weird with your customers. Treat them like you treat a loved one. You know, their customers are people. They're valuable. Some customers are not worth having. Most are. The customers that are not worth having, you eventually learn to spot. Those are the customers that criticize your work no matter what you do. Now, here's a case that everyone, I think, is going to end up with eventually. 3 times over the last 20 years or so, 2 times, excuse me, over the last 20 years, I've gotten caught up in the housewife that thinks, there's nothing wrong with housewives, but the fact that she thinks that she knows more about engraving than I do. And she's criticizing the scroll work, which she can't draw. She doesn't know anything about scroll work, and I've seen it insidiously. That's just human nature, and you have to just take it, not insult the man's wife, but don't get your feelings hurt and don't be intimidated. But you should be asking for criticism about your work. And the way I've done it in the past is I'll say, you know, criticize my work, please. And someone will say something nice about my work, and I'll say, no, you didn't understand. I wanted you, if I wanted somebody to tell me how brilliant I was, I would have took this work and I would have showed it to my mother, and you know, she would have told me how great I am. But that's not what I asked you for. I want you to find out. I want you to criticize it. What do you not like about it? So even if in a case of a customer, you know, we have to admit that even if that customer doesn't have formal training, he still knows what beauty is. For example, he may see a beautiful woman and not know why technically she's considered beautiful, but he just knows she's beautiful because he recognizes beauty. And sometimes people will have an opinion and it's just incorrect, or sometimes they'll know something isn't as good as it could be because they just happen to know beauty. Right now I'm just making these guidelines here, And when I make guidelines, I make tiny little dots, and then I go back and correct them. So I'm making dots on a scroll, dots. Then I see what it looks like, then I go back and I correct it. So I got a really nice little scroll right there. And this scroll is probably about a 1/4 inch high. That'll give you an idea how small this is. And this will also give you an idea why you need a potter's wheel vise. Stay away from the goofy tools, please, and just get with the potter's wheel vise. That's all you need for a shortcut. That is all you need, gentlemen. You do not need mechanical devices. You do not need a microscope to give yourself a neck ache. You ever been in a microscope all day? I have. I've been a student looking in my younger days, looking through a microscope for 4 or 5 hours at a time. Yeah, it gives a whole new meaning to the idea of headache. You turn up the light too much so you can see everything, and then you feel like you're going to go blind at any second. You know what? I really like the detail I got in here. I know I fixed my little mistake. I'm going to polish it and look at it later again. When I look at engraving and when I get excited about it, I know it's okay. And I still have, I think, I really like this engraving. I'm not telling you I like it because I'm trying to convince you how wonderful I am. But I am trying to show you the enthusiasm that you have to have for this type of occupation. You know, I never get sick of drawing scroll. I never get sick of engraving. Sometimes I have to get away from a difficult job. But I never get sick of doing this. I love to cut steel. But another thing you have to remember is biomechanical stress. I think we should just talk about that right now.